everyone, I'm Suzie Sandoval, lifestyle organizing expert and founder of Organize Zen. And today I'm here with Sophia Treygor, sex and intimacy coach. And so welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you, because I know that it's in conversation where we have those aha moments and those insights. And
Sex and intimacy mean to you? I'm going to go straight in.
no, perfect. That reminds me, in my car is that big flip chart with all of the, what does sex mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
let's give this a little context here. What do you mean about this flip chart?
So I run a group called the Vagina Dialogues. It's a new group, and my intention behind creating the group is for women to gather in community and be able to speak about sex and sexuality and womanhood, whatever that means to each woman, in a very open space, and be in community, because girlfriends aren't speaking to each other. We're not speaking to our mothers. We don't really have many mentors or people that we feel comfortable speaking to, because for whatever reason. And I believe, and what I heard from the populace, is that we need a space to just say whatever we want to say without feeling judged. So in this group, the first time we met, which was 3 months ago, I put out the question to the group, what does sex mean to you? And the women started yelling out words, and I couldn't keep up with it, and I just wrote it all down. And there was this amazing developmental process, and every aspect was hit upon, which was so cool. So we hit upon the pleasure and the joy and shame and the guilt and trauma and all of it. Like, it all was hit upon in just that one question: what does sex mean to you?
I was there. It was powerful. I was very triggered by the word sex. I had a very small view of what it meant to me. And so just that experience, that opening up that conversation and seeing what it meant to others, and like you said, the developmental process, helped me realize how limited I was in that word. And it actually allowed me to not feel... I feel a lot more empowered to use the word. It doesn't have like this negative connotation to me anymore. So, and that's what you are, right? A sexual empowerment coach. So I felt like I experienced firsthand what that really meant. How do women mistake sex for love? Men can do it too, but I'm gonna focus. I know that you work with a lot of women. How do women mistake sex for love?
That's a really personal question to me, because, and I'm very open about it and transparent about it. My journey, my sexual exploration, and my mindfulness around it now, that's how I was operating. I was operating on using sex, the physical act, the physical intimacy, to connect with men. And I didn't know what was going on at the time, and it was going on for a long time. It went on with a lot of my sexual partners and lovers and boyfriends. But what was happening was, I would meet somebody and feel so much craving and desperation to be close to somebody, to have a companion, and I'm a sexual person, and I love sex. I love the physical act and the pleasure and all of that, and I love connection, but they were very confused for me. So I would feel very aroused. I meet somebody and they're new and they're attractive to me, and I felt very aroused, and I would want to be physically intimate with them right away without getting to know them as a person. which I'm not judging, just having sex physically with somebody to connect. I'm not judging that at all, but I know for myself that wasn't really what I wanted. I wanted a companion. So I would engage quickly with new men that I was meeting, but deep in my heart, I really, really wanted a friend. I really wanted to be friends. I really wanted to get to know the person, but the sex would happen so quickly, and I loved it so much, and I felt so connected to the person because of being with them sexually, physically, that the intimacy that I craved was veiled. I wasn't actually receiving it, because once that was done, once, I got bored of the sex,
Yeah.
or the person, or whatever, and I started to get to know who they were, I discovered that I didn't like them and that they were not somebody that I would be friends with. That became my litmus test. I would ask myself, is this somebody that I want to spend time with and be friends with? And the answer was always no. So my relationships were always relatively short-lived, because I would get to a point where I realized I didn't want to know and they were good people. I just realized that I was not compatible with them, and that having them as a lover just was not satisfying to me anymore. And this was a pattern that I went through over and over and over and over again, and realized I'm the common denominator here.
Yeah.
And it really boiled down to self-love and self-worth, and that everything I needed was inside myself, including sexually.
That's exactly what I heard, is that the physical intimacy or the physical connection was such a deep craving that we don't necessarily have the tools to know how to get that craving met. And that now, since those experiences have really taught you that you're wanting to create more intimacy first, that you feel connected on a deeper level that is going to enhance the sexual intimacy, right? It would be even better.
Absolutely. Well, that's been my experience. Everyone has a different experience.
Definitely.
But once I started practicing, meditating, yoga, engaging in practices that helped me be more mindful, then I would check in with myself more, check in with my body more, check in with my sensations, and I'm still doing it, practicing not reacting. Like even if I'm supercharged and aroused, asking myself, what is the best course of action for me right now in this moment?
That's very empowering.
And sometimes it's having sex. Sometimes it's a physical thing that I want, a physical need that I want met. So it's powerful to check in.
And that can be really frustrating, to have that craving so deep and that desire that you know that you really, really want. Why do you think what do you think people find most frustrating about sex?
The first thing that comes to mind on a physical level, the sexual frustration of not getting off.
Yeah.
Of not
being satisfied.
And I want to be very clear about the distinction, not reaching climax, which is what we all think we want. And I'm dare to say that that's not really what we want. But orgasm can be all the time, and pleasure could be all the time.
Now you're
Does that sound good?
Now you're talking.
Does that sound good?
Now you're talking. Huh? Now you're really talking. So that kind of segues into my next question for you, is how powerful is the sensation of touch?
That's not even a question. It's powerful.
How can it be powerful? How can it be more powerful to be more intimate?
It's powerful in different ways. It could be an extremely empowering experience and can also be a traumatic experience. It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
But it could be used as a vehicle to step onto the path of empowerment too. May I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Because I know that you've expressed to me that, you know, when you met me or when you were getting to know me, that, you know, that I'm very affectionate,
Definitely.
and very touchy-feely.
Definitely.
And
yeah, you
know,
sat right next to me at a table. She sat right next to me at a table. We hung out. We went dancing one night, and I remember you sat like really, really close to me, and I like scooted just a little bit over because.
What was that experience for you? What was, you know, that feeling that came up?
It was just needing some more space. I wasn't ready to have someone in my bubble that close. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying earlier, you know, I've had trauma in my past. And so I know about myself that I am, it takes me some time. I've actually made I'm much more open throughout the years now than I've ever been. Mm-hmm. I don't even know now if that same situation happened that I would really even need to scoot over that much. Mm-hmm. But at that time in my life, I was much more sensitive to it. Mm-hmm. And I remember it. I remember doing the little scoot, because it was a bit uncomfortable. And it wasn't bad and it wasn't good. It wasn't about that. It was about honoring my needs, and I needed more space.
Absolutely. And that's really the point, is to be aware of your own needs, and then be able to express those needs. Express those needs and practice asking.
This reminds me of a conversation that we had, that even the most powerful, empowered women struggle with expressing themselves and having these kind of intimate conversations. Why do you think it's so difficult, or do you have any wisdom to share about having conversations before actually having sex?
That's my big mantra of, and you know, people disagree, of course, but my mantra is talking about sex is sexy, and talking about it before, whether you're in a new relationship, in a 20-year marriage, doesn't matter. Having conversations, bringing it up, is in of itself so vulnerable, but also very powerful. And I've said this before, vulnerability is a superpower. A lot of
So what do you mean by that?
There's a lot of myths that go into sexual relationships and communication about sex and things like that. One of the biggest ones is that we should know what to do. I have no idea how that even came about, because how should we know? I mean,
and everyone's so unique and different.
It isn't instinctual. It is not instinctual to just know what to do. And there's no mentoring, there's no learning. We're learning from television, and I don't want to go off on a rant about that, but the umbrella for what makes it so terrifying and difficult to have conversations about sex, and sex is one example. Mm-hmm. There are other conversations that's really hard for us to have. It's the vulnerability piece. It's really being afraid of being vulnerable, because that's risk-taking. That's coming out of a comfort zone. If we don't speak about it and we just say, well, we'll just see what happens, and I'll accept what happens, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be satisfying, and whatever. I'm just going to stay in my comfort zone. It's, you know, vulnerability is about fear of rejection. It's about fear for women. It's about fearing hurting somebody's feelings, hurting their partner's feelings, being judged by the desires that they have.
Let's talk about desire, because I think that puts us in a place of vulnerability, the things that you're talking about. So what is it deep down, something that we all intrinsically desire?
If I had to name one or two states of being that we desire is to be witnessed without judgment, to be affirmed, to be able to say, I have this desire, whatever it is, sexually especially, and to know that whoever is on the other end, listening and receiving, that they're just going to mirror back and say, that's totally okay. Doesn't mean I'm going to engage in that, but just to say, that's totally okay.
Feels really good. That's a gift.
It is. It really is. And it's unfortunately rare with the people that we are intimate with the most and love the most, because there's this mirroring back and forth. You know, you and I always mirror each other. There's this mirroring back and forth. If I can express my desires and you mirror back to me, that's a mirror back to you. We're constantly reflecting each other, constantly.
Totally. What I like about that, too, is that it's bringing back us taking personal accountability for getting our desires met, rather than blaming our partner for not providing us with something and reading our minds.
Or expecting.
Or expectations.
Expecting, like, you should know. Please, let's stop shoulding. Please.
Let's have more conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of times in my life, when I was using sex as a way to get intimately connected with somebody or love or falling in love, what I really needed is I needed touch. And I can get that from my friends. I can get that from hugs. I needed community.
So what's lust and infatuation? How do you define that? How do you define that?
For me, it was just this intense arousal, intense sexual arousal, and intense fantasy. And yes, I found myself fantasizing sexually. It was intense sexual fantasies and wanting to be physical with a person. That I don't want to diminish the fact that those feelings and cravings and then experiences, there's a lot of physiological stuff happening in our bodies and our brains, that, you know, all the hormones and neurotransmitters that are being released that are then saying, you want more of this. And that, for me, is how it became an addiction, because I was addicted to the sensation. I was addicted to the arousal. I was addicted to the pleasure that I was having, but I was really addicted to the climax. Because all I wanted was climax. I wanted to get off. I wanted my partners to get me off. And that was not, over time, fulfilling enough. Because I can get myself off.
And would you mind sharing what love means to you now, in contrast to lust and infatuation?
Absolutely, and it's not glamorous. Love to me, and I'm experiencing it right now in my life, is the day-to-day mundane, really caring about somebody and really stepping outside of my needs, and my, like, the I, my, and really seeing another person and saying, how can I make your life better? And
to take a step further, how can you receive joy in giving to your partner?
Yes.
Because then it's you're being filled up, and you're giving from a place of fulfillment.
And that's so different than feeling obligated to do certain things, which is where my mind and heart was for a long time.
What I'm hearing from you is, by us really checking in with ourselves.
Number one.
Really, what is it that we need, right? As we check in, what is it that we really, really need? Having the ability to pleasure ourselves, so that we can communicate to our partners what brings us the most pleasure.
Boom.
And having these conversations about our desires without judgment. Yeah.
I mean, you just pretty much summed it up.
So that would be, that would be a summary as to some ways also that you can talk about sex and have it be sexy.
When one's sex and sexual life is transformed, everything else in life is transformed.
I figure out how to fit this in, but I have to give a shout out to an amazing book who we've talked about, that I was introduced to a while back that was life-changing for me. And it was called Slow Sex by Nicole Didone. Hope I said her name right.
Life-changing for me.
I know that you're familiar with that book.
Suzie gave it to me, and it's like, whoa, game changer.
Yeah, so that, if you want to learn even more about how orgasmic can be a meditation and a constant in your life, I would highly recommend that book and learn more about the practice of it. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
It's been a lovely conversation.
Thank you for opening up and sharing your experience.
Absolutely. There's no other way to do it than to be transparent and share our stories, because I know there's other people out there that have suffered and are suffering and don't need to continue to suffer.
No.
We just need some tools and some conversations like these and some aha moments that can really be life-changing and shift mindsets and behaviors that will shift your life. So how can people find out more about you?
Well, hopefully bump into me in Portland, which I love when that happens. But you can peruse sophiatreygor.com. My partner Rachel and I, we just created a podcast called No More Good Girl, and it's for you bad girls and boys out there who want to engage in conversation. It's just another way to do that with me. That out there.
Great. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and interview with Sophia Treygor. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.